Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome our speakers for this session. Thank you for taking out your valuable time for this. We are waiting to hear you out on today's theme of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In today's discussion at the Rise World Summit, our deliberation will revolve around promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, and strategies for their successful implementation. As we know, India, our country of many languages and ethnicity, the understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion becomes inevitable. If we look at the corporate side of things, product innovation, inculcating inclusive decision making, promoting customer satisfaction, reducing the attrition rate becomes essential. From this arises the need of investing in DEI and employee resource group, which tries to induce and accelerate diversity, equity, and inclusion at the workplace. Today, we have with us speakers from diverse experiences, and we'll be exploring our topic in great depth. So I would like to begin by introducing our first speaker, Mr. Ali Khan. Ali is a professional with over 15 years of industry expertise, currently serving as a global head, governance, risk compliance and audit, health, safety and well-being officer for ZS Associates. Leading the information security and privacy management system globally, he oversees governance, risk and compliance processes, ensuring adherence to certifications such as ISO 27001 and ISO 27701, and more across 37 plus ZS offices. Ali is passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Ali leads Pride at the ZS APAC, significantly expanding its India chapter. As a global speaker, industry veteran, and certified professional, Ali holds an MS in Physics and Communication Electronics. Beyond his professional achievements, he engages in community service, reflecting his commitment to making a positive impact beyond the corporate world. Moving to our next speaker, we have Harsha Ravi Kumar with us. So Harsha is working as a product manager, experiences and devices, Office Product Group with Microsoft, and a founding member and a co-lead for ERG Gleam India. He has completed his engineering degree in information and technology from Vishwesvaraya Technology University. Post that, he joined as a shaper in Global Shaper community. He was recognized as LGBT plus Trailblazer of the Year in India Workplace Equity Index 2022. Apart from this, he has led Microsoft India in various external forums on topic of LGBTQI, inclusion and beyond. Coming to our third speaker, we have Sonal Shubham with us. Sonal is a CSR senior executive with Celebi Aviation Holding. She worked as a program advocacy officer with Vagdhara, which is a non-profit organization in Rajasthan. So she has a range of experiences as an intern as well as a field worker with esteemed organizations like Tata Power DTL. She is also pursuing her PhD with Department of Social Work, University of Delhi. So now we have our last speaker. She's none other than Dr. Simi Mishra. So Dr. Simi Mishra, the Inclusion Vertical Director at Connecting Dreams Foundation, brings 17 years of expertise in learning and design, talent management, and cognitive behavioral therapy. She's a dynamic leader with strong business sense who thrives in youth volunteer networks, technology-enabled content, and mentor development for system-led social initiatives. Dr. Mishra has made significant contributions to the government and the corporate sector, with particular emphasis on social entrepreneurship and localization of sustainable development goals. So devoted to empowering vulnerable LGBT community at the grassroots level, she promotes inclusive sustainable development and creates innovative employment and business models and received recognition for her groundbreaking efforts. So we have so looking at the experiences of our speakers, I believe collectively we are surely going to set a right and much needed context and narrative to our topic and aligning it to the truth of the things. So I hand over the session to Dr. Simi Mishra to take it forward. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anuradha. Thank you for taking this forward while I was struggling to get in. So thank you so much, the esteemed panelist, Harsha, Ali, Sonal. It's a pleasure to be talking with you and have you on this forum. And thank you, Rise, for giving us this platform to work this across with you. So this is not going to be a formal. I'm getting an echo back from someone. Anuradha, if you can just go back on mute or something. I'm
Sure.
so sorry. Yeah. So, like I said, that this is not really a formal panel discussion to kind of, like where lots of questions are going to come somewhere to some persons, but I think it's a collective place where we all want to discuss diverse opinions and maybe even kind of, talk a little bit about the issues that are there within us and how we are trying to kind of solve and tackle that out. Having said that, I think my first opening remark would be directed to Harsha and Ali and Sonal. Please feel free to also kind of chip in. Is that in India, like many other parts of the world, LGBTQ individuals encounter various challenges both in personal as well as in the workplace. So these could be due to, societal attitudes, legal constraints, and also sometimes just simple cultural norms. So Harsha, when Anuradha was introducing you, she mentioned that you had come out openly as an LGBTQ community member. So just going back onto your journey, and if it's not really a very traumatic one, could you kind of talk about what are the significant challenges that you faced? And largely focus not on the personal side of it, but the workplace side of things.
All right. Thank you, Simi. A very good afternoon, everyone. I am honored to be part of this panel and really looking forward to a lot of diverse point of view on this topic and very close to my heart. I always call myself as an accidental DEI professional because I come from an engineering background. I have no role to play in a DNI space. I joined as a software engineer in Microsoft, just like any other 800 plus people join every year. And But then life had its own ways to put forward challenges at towards me. I think of course, I realized I was quote unquote different as I was growing up as a queer child. But then the acceptance was way far, from me. I don't think I was in a state to even accept myself. And that took a different turn when I joined a workplace, because when you're in a workplace, you are definitely exposed to a different kinds of people. You're no more in school and college where a lot of your look thinking alike or the same generation folks you interact with, and now you're suddenly interacting with people from various generations, from various backgrounds, from various expertise coming together. So I was exposed to, of course, homophobia as well, and this was in 2015, 2016, where we were just debating in the country whether homosexuality should be continuing to be criminal offense or not. Supreme Court had started hearing the petition. So there was a lot of visible homophobia in the country back then, and being an ally was not a discussed factor at that point in time. So the primary difficulty I faced was the acceptance of homophobia in a workplace. Right. I did reach out to one of our HRs back then, and I said, hey, we're talking about women, women in technology, and that's definitely like a real, real important cause to talk about, because we don't even have 50% of our women in workforce. So let's definitely tackle that. But then I posted a question around, hey, why not let's just start interacting more about LGBTQI plus folks, and just warm people up about it. And this was probably my own quest to understand myself, and trying to find my like-minded people, so to speak, right? And I was shoved away from that conversation, saying, hey, section 377 doesn't let us talk about it. It's a very difficult offense. And I really had to sit down and go by word of section 377, which is a very two sentenced act, so you speak, right? So and nowhere it mentions corporate cannot speak. Nowhere it mentions, talking about LGBTQI plus is criminal offense and things like that. But then I didn't feel the allyship in that room that day. And that was, imagine someone who had mustered the courage to even talk about it to one person in the organization, right? But then there were, of course, so many people who wouldn't muster that courage to speak about it. Cut to a couple of years later, we had one of our India leaders joining in from a different company and not a Microsoft grown personality, and he spoke about his gay friend, and that was like a game changer for me, because I saw for the first time someone holding a position of power or in a hierarchy chain speak about this three-letter word gay and how they're close to that person, and how that person's struggles are so real in the country. That just made me so connected to that person, to that leader, and I really found that, ray of hope. And I shot an email again to this individual and I said, hey, this is great to see you talk about someone so close to you and they are gay. I think this was the first time I heard, and all I got a response was, things will change, things are getting changed. So I knew that someone with the right allyship mind was sitting in some room advocating for myself and beyond, and that resulted in us starting an ERG. I was so fortunate that they felt I had the maturity, and I had the amount of uh, strength to carry forward this initiative as one of the founding members of India chapter. That itself was a huge opportunity for me, because here I had the position to influence people and also make better place for myself first, and then of course others from my community. So yeah, I think it was a brilliant challenge I faced. Those initial years of setting up an ERG is super critical, because like you said, the topic is so sensitive in this country, and of course in a lot of other parts of the world. But in our country, the topic is so sensitive and stigmatized, and you often get negatively connotated for talking about it as an ally, and there's so much pressure on not showing up as an ally. We had to really break those barriers, and common issues after breaking those barriers are microaggressions, because you don't have visible harassment, you don't have someone vocally harassing someone in a workplace, because you have established this fact that this community is important, the company feels this is important, and that is established, right? But then you have these microaggressions where team is not accepting you as part of them, where team is not happy to share a lunch table with you, where a team is not happy to invite you over a weekend team outing or something, right? Like, these are all microaggression behaviors where you're not exclusively calling out someone, but you are creating that barrier between that individual and yourself. And that was a brilliant problem we had to face, because uh, you can't put microaggression under harassment and start firing people, right? Like, you need to educate them and build that empathy in people. So that was next set of challenges I faced, as someone who was setting up the ERG, that hey, not having an ERG or not having one leader present will solve your ground reality, right? Like, the ground reality where the encouragement of homophobia exists, there has to be encouragement of allyship that needs to overpower that culture, and that takes time, that takes effort, from all levels, from the leaf node to the top management. Everybody needs to work in that progress. So yeah, that was my journey, and I came out to my work first. That says a lot about the importance of workplace in a queer individual's life. It gives you confidence, it gives you the immense assurance that you can do everything and anything you want to achieve, and that made me so sure that I came out to workplace first. And then with that confidence, I came out to my family, and I was able to induce that same strength in them, that, hey, no matter what, I'm not alone. I have this company supporting me. I have people around me supporting me. I just need you guys also to back me up. So yeah, I think that the power of workplace advocacies or workplace ERGs so immense on queer individuals. I was the only person out, and that's not the case anymore. I have so many people, fellow queer individuals coming out at workplace, and it just gives me so much joy. And that was never our intention. Number was never our intention. We didn't want to create more Harsha Ravi Kumars, right? But it just naturally happens when you build that culture. Yeah, thanks for asking that, Simi. You're on mute, Simi.
Harsha, thank you so much for sharing those very personal insights. But I think, we all draw a lot of courage and inspiration from what happened. So it's not about, what I took away personally was a couple of things that, having people who are allies or sympathetic to the cause or show empathy in places of power. I think, those are very, very important levers that a business can kind of pull. But again, it's not an easy road that you went across. Being the only one to now, I know that, we worked with you, so we have a large that is there. And not only just that, like whenever I talk within the business circles, hey, do you know Harsha? A lot of people do kind of, come back, hey, do you know him too? Right. So I think it talks about how you have kind of, not only established a place for queer and LGBTQ within your organization, but also outside. So thank you so much for all that hard work that you put in, all that resistance. It wouldn't have been easy. I'm sure it gave you a lot of sleepless nights, but I'm happy that you're here, and I'm happy that it's kind of growing. So my question would now kind of go to Ali. Ali, I know that you're a very, very strong ally, and you did kind of share with me earlier that you also accidentally kind of fell into this allyship and took that baton up and ran with it, and how. So do tell us about a little bit about how you got started, how did you come into the space, and where you are today, and what your personal perspective is.
Thank you so much, Semi. And Harsha, fabulous to hear your story. Really encouraging, and I think a beacon of light for a lot of queer individuals out there who could learn, accept themselves, and move on. So, my journey with allyship has been through my previous roles. I hold about 15 years of experience in the industry, supporting women empowerment, supporting people with accessibility issues or people living with disabilities and so on has been quite a while. Now, when I joined ZS, I remember in my first year of work, one of the firm contributions that I was working on is how do we get kick-started with an allyship journey in general? Now, in ZS, we always had in a lot of our ERG groups, but again, the ERG groups are something where people came together, formed in a community, and considering our values where we treat people right as an absolute value, it really helped them start shaping up those communities. So we had a woman at ZS, we had pride at ZS, we had Black Hispanic Alliance at ZS, and these various communities. Now, this is way back in 2019 when we were thinking of how do you get started with allyship? How do you, have allies support the cause? Because the communities at times that are underrepresented need someone to at times be the support system guide. As Harsha said, that one leader coming and talking vocally about a gay friend change things. There's a need for people in power to step in. So you're working on this program. My job was more to, think from a corporate governance standpoint, again, think of it from an implementation standpoint, how it could be across the firm, looking at our scale and size. And while that happened as a pilot group of 5 people, as a working group, we said, in theory, we say we need to listen more as allies and speak less, right? And that's what you find across in all your references. Why don't we do one thing? We're going to split ourselves and go to each of the existing ERGs, and let's be the ally and see how things are going on and what we could do. Now, that's where it was where I stumbled upon Pride at ZS. Again, back in 2019 as well, stigma, not just within the society, it always even exists, at a personal level, where people do not want to directly, in a named manner, start associating with LGBTQIA causes, because there are questions that start getting asked even about yourself. For a male, it becomes even more difficult because there are a lot of indirect references that come through. Not that it's quite easy for women. So that's how it started. When I started Pride at ZS in India, the India chapter was about 20 people. So my first couple of months went about, listening, understanding the pulse, knowing the people. And I think listening is a very, very important part of an ally. We often come across people with a confused version of allyship who want to be the heroes out there. I don't think you're the hero. You want to be an ally, you need to be in the back curtains, in the backstage. You need to be the right listener. You need to speak less. You're there to support somebody. But what is the kind of support somebody is expecting from you? Is a big question. It depends on them. It's their journey, not yours. You are somebody who is going along, and trying to do your bit as needed. So that's how it started. Over a period of time, again, I was asked to assume a more leadership role out there, and then become, the India lead, and furthermore the APAC lead. And I think over the last 4.5 years, I feel proud that we grew from about 20 people to now 800. A lot of community members, say about 20% of allies, but 80% is community members. People feel that there is a safe space for them to come out without judgment. But it is not quite easy to put something of this sort on ground, right? Because there are multiple factors. I think when you want to lead a group or an ERG for LGBTQIA, I think the first thing is the leadership commitment, even that needs to be very voiced out and in a strong, robust manner across the firm. Because when you're going to deal with and the implementation and the sustenance and the management of an ERG group that's associated with LGBTQI, it's not just about preventing harassment. There's a lot more to it, and you need to be fully comfortable, embrace yourself, and prepared, and even as organization leaders, right, on what there'll be too many unknowns coming out. You may have people who may want to come across and, as Harsha said, come out first in the workplace. How are you going to try and handle that entire environment? Because it's going to be a surprise to their team members. It's going to be a surprise to, people around them. How are you going to handle that? What about that anxiety that comes within the individual? How are you going to tackle that? At times you just need to be, a good listener. They need a soundboard to talk to. How are you going to try and handle across, certain queries and questions that come? I'm looking for an accommodation. I identify as trans, I'm not getting accommodation, and you want me to come and work from office. Or today I feel very, underpinned and depressed because I'm of a variety of reasons and home situations, and I do not want to feel like coming and socializing with people at work. How are you going to handle these conversations? It's always, there's going to be a new conversation that's going to keep you engaged, but you need to be prepared rather than saying there's no policy for it, or, this does not come under our structure. What is that fluidity you try to bring across? How do you bring the equity conversation in without letting the others around them start feeling that there is, a kind of a quota, kind of a system working around? So a lot of balance to play, a lot of own self-reflection to do, because there's a lot of learning as well. I think in the last 5 years, I have learned immensely. One of the pieces, I get often asked about is, how do you feel about leading Pride at ZS APAC? And the APAC chapter now happens to be the biggest across the globe for us. So it's a moment of pride. And I often say that, I came there as an accidental ally, and I stayed back because I received so much of love from the community that I feel belonged out here. This is a safe space even for me. And I love being here.
Very well said, Ali. Very well said. I think as you were talking about the belongingness and the fact that, yes, there is a stigma associated, stated, unstated, even in the workplace, some people come out very, very strongly to still kind of, say that, hey, this is not acceptable to me. I think it has a lot of, like stuff to do with upbringing, with the value set that you have, and also the empathetic nature and the quotient that each and every individual has. Like you, I, after my corporate journey, I also started very, very accidentally kind of, supporting the LGBTQ community. And today I do kind of, still get asked very often that, do you also kind of, identify as one of the community members? And sometimes it's bluntly asked, sometimes it's very slyly asked. And yes, there is a stigma, but I think the minute you kind of clarify that it is an ally, and you too can be an ally, I think, the doors kind of open up, and people do kind of are very, very curious as to what's happening and what's there. So a lot of demystification, a lot of showing the fact that in a workplace specifically, it's always not the gender or the sexuality that needs to be in the forefront. To be a friend or an ally, you need to be a human first. So your human values, whatever it is. I mean, if a friend is, down or depressed or feeling a little low on that day, what would you do for them? You would crack a joke, you would take them out for a coffee, or just hear them out. So that has got nothing to do with you belonging to any kind of any sexuality that you identify with, any gender that you identify. It's just a human to human interaction. So putting that forefront, I think, has kind of helped me very, very steady. And of course, yes, I do feel very proud, like you just said, that you work with your workplace and your workforce, and they do kind of give you a lot of love and belongingness. So just yesterday, some trans woman actually kind of pinged me and said that you're just like my mother. And I don't think anybody ever has kind of come across and said that so strongly. But I had tears in my eyes when I actually read that. So totally understand what you're saying, Ali, and totally identify, and thank you for being, there for so many people across APAC.
Sri, I think you've gone on mute. It's yet muted.
Yeah. Sorry. Accidentally muted. So, Sonal, I wanted to ask you about your journey. And I know Sonal has actually just undergone a laser surgery as recent as yesterday, but she's not chickened out of this. So Sonal, hats off for being there for us. And, even if we can't see you, we'd love to hear from you about your own personal journey and what you are doing at Celebi as an organization.
Thank you, Simi. And I don't have as much as knowledge as you all are experienced and all. I'm just a student right now as a PhD student and also working as a CSR professional. But in the entire journey that I've gone through, currently I'm doing my PhD on the identity formation of transgender community. And this all started when I was in graduation, and then one of my friend who recognizes himself as gay, he just called me one day and he said that तू मुझे इस तरीके से अगर if I start identifying myself like a gay, will you support me in front of my family and all? I was like, since I come from Bihar, this was the LGBTQIA terminology and everything was not very common there. We only used to understand about the transgender community. And when this whole scenario came in front of me, I was like, this is something different, which I need to learn and which I need to understand. And obviously, as Simi you, said, that you just need to be a human first to understand or be alive for someone. So, and Ali also said that listening is the most important thing. So that day I decided that I will listen to you, and then my interest grew in this field, the entire thing. And later on, when I uh, pursued my social work studies and read about gender diversity and all, I came across the entire terminology and the struggles of this community. Now, currently in Celebi Aviation, where I'm, I'm sorry, like my voice is little low today. Sorry. So when I'm working in this organization, so before my joining in the organization, there was not that approach of working with the community. But later on, when we discussed the problems and when we came to know about when we decided to work with the LGBTI community for our CSR initiative, the higher senior management was very supportive. Like recently, we have started working on the skill development of transgender community, and further we'll be moving with other approaches also. So related to the diversity and inclusion perspective, like there are multiple things that is going on in the companies, I guess. So it like we are trying to incorporate changes in the policies that can support the groups which come from the minority background. There will be non-discrimination policy. We are also trying to work on gender neutral facilities. Even yes, like day before yesterday we were discussing how we can generate offer letters that can be gender neutral, that can include the gender neutral terms, and how we can increase visibility and representation in our own organization. So in the CSR field, like recently we have like many examples. I was reading about this General Electric organization who has organized a pride walk in its premises. So we were also discussing that under our CSR initiatives or under our diversity and inclusion policies, we can do these kind of things so that we can increase awareness amongst our employees also, and we can create a conducive environment. So later when after 1 or 2 years, when we have someone, when we can we can create a conducive environment for people from this community to join, because there are many small things that matter. Someone, when I was doing my PhD data collection also, someone told me ki first you ask me what pronoun I want to use for myself, and then you start the question. So these are very small things that I think that the entire corporate or all the diversity and inclusion employees should incorporate in their policies, and maybe these can help in creating such non-discriminatory practices in the organization, and thus we can create a thing that can help all the individuals to feel comfortable in their space. And also, as Ali and Harsha both discussed, that being an ally, that is very important. Uh, when you be an ally with for someone of this community, they feel safe around you. You just need to, sometimes you just need to listen to them, sometimes you just need to understand the issues that they are undergoing, and then the path can become very easy, the entire journey can become very easy. So this is my small experience that I'm having for the community, working with the community, and also from the CSR perspective. And of course, from the CSR perspective, like creating a environment is important, and similarly spending the resources of CSR in this field is very important, so that people who are not very well off can also can get mainstreamed with the entire thing. So that is my experience as of now.
Thanks, Sonal. Thank you for sharing that. And we are very happy to hear that, how organizations, I mean, you are the leader in your organization talking about, baby steps that you're taking towards inclusivity in the workplace. And what I noticed is that you kind of, adopted a very practical and effective approach, whether it is, educational initiatives or establishing inclusive policies, or even small things, like you said, how to generate offer letters which are gender neutral. But I think you're very lucky in the sense that leadership commitment is there for you, and obtaining visible support from the leadership is extremely, extremely important. I cannot kind of, underline that factor more. When leaders are actively championing diversity and inclusion, it sends a very powerful message throughout the organization. And it encourages not only a culture of inclusivity, but also a diversified workplace, and so many other things just kind of, automatically fall in place. So thank you so much for sharing those insights and how you are kind of, helping Celebi Aviation go forward. So thank you for sharing that. My next question is to Ali. Ali, I'm sure that, as a leader, you are kind of, collaborating with the HR or the human resources or people, like vertical that you have and the organizational leaderships. And ERGs can ensure that, the company is actively involved in creating an inclusive environment. You've done that all. But what we would like to hear from you is that, how do you think is India's position at a global level, and where do we really kind of stand? And even if the comparison is within the various countries at an APAC level, it will be a very interesting perspective to understand how are we positioned, where do we stand, are there some indices or some indicators that you use to kind of talk about not only ERG and organizational leadership, but also the work that you're doing for the LGBTQ.
Mhm. This is a very interesting question, Simi. While we look at a global stance when it comes to ERG governance, and DNI, the situations are different, specific to the geographies, but not that the problems are quite different. So, if you go to the US, for example, out there as well, we say it's a very progressive country. You've got favoring laws for LGBTQ, you've got marriage equality, and so on. But then again, you do have discrimination, which is quite rampant. Again, LGBTQ demographically are subjected to violence as well, right? I think while we see violence in India, which is all out in the news, you may not see a lot of news out there, but the violence is rampant. When you go to the UK, things are better, things are good, but not that these instances don't happen. So similarly, I think the problem around, demographic isolation and demographic resistance from a culture standpoint is all across the globe. I think, it gets quite publicized in India. So we look as the black sheep, but if you look at it from a cultural aspect, see, we do have a lot of ingenious, you know, cultural groups that have also been there for a while. So, like Sonal was saying, when it comes to the transgender folks, it was quite easy to understand even in the context from her own state. So, you've got the Kinnars, you've got the Hijras, you've got so many different other communities who have been thriving for long. In fact, let's look back 20 years from now, when even we have been brought up, and at least, from families where values are really imbibed across. Our parents, our grandparents literally quite believed in, seeking blessings from the third gender at every point of time. Not that they were discriminated against. That there was societal stigma. I don't disagree with that, but there have been some good practices as well. And even today, be it a wedding, there are those instances where the members of these communities are invited across. Now, when we talk about the public policy, however, and from the legal standpoint, that's where the crisis lies, right? A lot of countries in the West, and in fact, even in Asia now, it started happening, are adopting in regulations and laws that are focused towards granting some basic rights, at least, to the LGBTQIA. This is not, I say that, they are trying to course correct some of the facts in the history where the discrimination has been so rampant and it's caused an literal impact to the community itself. And now people are trying to course correct it. In India, things are on the verge of changing. So I'll give you an example. I'm about to kick off a project with a non-profit named MIST, who's collaborating with UNDP to have a policy debrief come across on the marriage equality laws coming in, and how can, the public opinion really shape up onto it. So 5 years back, having this discussion, Harsha, you may think about it when you said 2016, the question coming up was not practically possible. Today, we've got pro bono work getting affected. We've got UNDP kind of organizations coming forward. You've got hundreds of non-profits today working towards that cause. However, there are these basics that would need to come from a legislations before it can start getting into the employment rules and employee council. So today, for example, in terms of maternity benefits, irrespective if you're a big corporate house or a small MSME, you will have to have those 6 months of maternity benefits given. You cannot do without it. Now, do I have the same benefits for anybody? Does the law mandate it for a trans person undergoing transition? Do you have mental health benefits that can be mandated across, for queer individuals who are yet battling with their identity and trying to be comfortable coming out with their own people? And I think the most amount of resistance at times is faced back at home. It's faced back with friends. Corporate discrimination yet can have a policy to correct it, but what about the things that happen outside? So these mandates are yet to start setting in. However, when we keeping the mandates aside, there are a lot of organizations who also have started leveraging DNI more from their corporate governance and compliance perspective. So, for example, if you go into organizations, and a lot of manufacturing organizations do that, there's a standard called a Social Accountability 8000, SA 8000, that puts together fair work practices, employment, stress on employment rules, and this is very strongly audited by a degree of auditors with a lot of scrutiny at least twice in the year. So that way you need to demonstrate the data, you need to demonstrate your KPIs. DNI is also a part of the broader governance of the standard. Again, the ISO organization has a standard called as ISO 26000, which a lot of organizations adopt. You do have a guidelines that is ISO 30415 that is focused on implementing DEI based compliance requirements across organizations. So organizations on their own will as well, by the time the government rules and regulations even come through, are making this as a part of their compliance charter so that there is a degree of seriousness that can come across. And I think things are evolving, things are changing. I think what things were 5 years back, they are much better today. 5 years from now, things will be quite different because there's a new fancy term in the market called as ESG, that's environment, social, and governance. A lot that we do in DNI cuts between the social, the S, as well as the G. By 2027 and 2030 and so on, while Europe is faster on enacting these regulations, the market is picking up with US, India, various organizations, various countries catching up the race. And once these regulations hit in, there's no option left across. Right. So again, even from a global perspective, I think India is in the race. We'll be there someday.
Absolutely, absolutely, Ali, and very interesting how you linked the ESG part of it to the DNI. So far, at least what in my limited understanding of ESGs, I've always seen it like linked to maybe initiatives that are there for climate resilience and carbon accounting and stuff like that. So extremely thought-provoking, and thanks for kind of sharing that insight as well. I really haven't kind of, in my own personal journey, really haven't kind of looked upon ESG from that perspective. So that's going to be
So,
food for
Simi, I'll
thought
give
for
a
me.
quick example
Yeah.
as well while just to conclude. So at ZS, when we started with putting our ESG goals, health equity became one of our key goals. And under health
Yes.
equity, since a year, I am personally involved in leading a project that involves in PrEP distribution and HIV preventions for marginalized members of the LGBT community, working along with the sex workers as well in the trans community. And we've
Mm-hmm.
taken this up as a major, major goal. So it's how you are able to link it back to the S part of it is important.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I think, all lot of, credit and thought has gone into it. So kudos for that thought. Yes, and Harsha also has, some emojis for you, right? Okay, so this is great, Ali. This is absolutely beyond what I thought. So to see that, how organizations who are thinking so differently are, rightly at the forefront and setting, the vision. So, Harsha, I had a slightly different question from you, but somewhat linked. Is that, while Ali kind of, brought in the perspective, which is like more global, you have been also in a position, I would like to call it, a leadership position, even if you're very humble about it. And we know that, leaders play a very, very crucial role in championing DEI and also belonging. So how are you empowering, like leaders across various multiple offices to become an active advocate for inclusion and ensuring that, all employees feel supported, feel valued, and are able to kind of, contribute?
Thanks, Simi. Yeah, like you mentioned, having leaders building that forum and walk the talk is super critical. And initially when I started with this journey, I used to really get, of course, boggled down with the sheer ignorance people of that position can actually come with, right? Like, and that's a fact. Like, I don't think somebody would give it a thought unless you sort of elude them to think in that direction, especially with LGBTQI plus inclusion in this country. And I really remember one incident when this was our initial days of setting up the ERG, and one leader just walks up to me and said, "Hey, I am like I'm an ally. I believe LGBTQI folks are important in the society, but I don't care what you do in your personal space as long as you bring a good skill to the table. And I don't want to discriminate my other employees in the team by just addressing LGBTQI plus as a important aspect for the team or the organization, etc." And it was a very interesting point of view, which a lot of leaders actually carry. Not just leaders, a lot of team members also carry, right? Like they think that why is there a sudden need of us talking about your sex life, which is so borderline obnoxious. But I understand where the ignorance coming from, right? And I really had to break it down to that leader and say that, do you realize you speak about your sexual orientation and your gender every day, every second in this company? And it took them for a surprise, like, no, I don't do that. I don't throw around that information everywhere. I said, you enter a loo, you're talking about your gender. You wear a certain dress, you're talking about your gender. You talk about your wife, you talk about your kids, you say that I have to go pick my kids, this is my kids drawing, this is my beautiful family, etc., right? And you're talking about your orientation there in a very loud and subtle way, yeah, right? And imagine that I have to pay the tax of not talking about a lot of this which is so given to you, and then I have to cook a story every time there's a conversation around this. I have to really juggle my head in my head and come up with this fancy story what I did over this weekend, where I probably just cried through it, or I probably went on a date, or I'm probably having a difficulty in conversing with my family about my sexuality, a lot of things, right? But then you're not letting me be myself. And that additional layers of coats I have to wear in a desert because you do not accept me as myself, and of course perform. I have to perform as equivalently or eloquently as others in the company to stay relevant in the company, to show impact. It's where is how is it fair? And that just opened their brain and mind, I would say, that day, and they're like, yeah, this is so true. Like imagine I am asked to not be myself from tomorrow, and I'm still expected to work. It's just not possible, and people are still thriving in that toxic or in a stressful chamber, I would say, because folks in the community have built that resilience towards their external validations to some extent. So the biggest challenge for leaders is to make it real. And we all understand business. Business means you bring in value, you bring in people. And the next question is, how many of us are there in this company for me to start addressing this, right? What is the need for me to talk about it? Do we have enough people? Wherein it's a catch-22 problem. Unless you build a community and culture, you will not have people coming out, and it's the vicious cycle you enter if you don't start solving it at one point, right? So the next challenge I had to face is like, hey, this is not a number game, or and sadly there is no government mandate. The transgender law doesn't imply any kind of reservation in government jobs, but it doesn't even put the onus on corporate sectors to even think of intentional hiring. I'm not asking for focused hiring where you're saying, okay, I need to fill in 10 people, 10 position per organization or something, but at least an intentional hiring piece. There's no onus as such. So if it all boils down to us as an organization being a thought leader and doing something in this space, it has to be rooted in a deep allyship that the individual has to carry. And I think I'd probably give credit to Microsoft's DNI initiative here, where they put there's this something called shared core priority, where all of us are expected to perform in a company and build impact and get revenues in any form and shape. But there's something called shared D&I core priority where everybody is held accountable for building D&I in the company. And this goes part of your impact discussion. It may not be 90% of the impact discussion, but there is a space for impact discussion where they are talking about what is this individual doing to make the company's culture better, and need not be being the Harsha Ravi Kumar or being the leader doing something major, but it could be as simple as, are you doing your courses, are you doing your small bit of being an ally in your team, how are you helping us build that team culture, things like that, as small as that. And imagine and the magnitude of responsibilities a leader will have under this core priority. They need to show, a CVP has to publish their core priority every year and say that, hey, my core priority for DNI is X things to do, and it involves building their own acumen around the subject, building community, helping the community, funding the community, etc., right? So I really leveraged that to the maximum, where I said that every leader needs to include LGBTQI plus core priority, and for that I will go and educate them. I will build the empathy in them. I will build the real case scenario for them and make it real for them. So yeah, I think these things are super critical for a leader, and for the community members, it's important that, like for me, it was a learning moment for me where I had to really not take it as an attack on me or my community, where someone's not acknowledging us or our existence. It's not that they're coming with a malicious thought that day. It's just that their lack of ignorance, lack of awareness is a very big thing in the country, where unless you make it real for people, it doesn't bother, because there's so many other things in this country to be bothered and get bothered about. So this is not something they would have thought at top of their mind. So building that acumen in leaders is super critical, and that was my biggest charter and goal, because that is scalable. Doing events, doing initiatives at a very grassroots level is definitely need of the hour. But I think when you want to scale this and make it a lived initiative for years to come, I think it has to be driven from top down as long as possible, and make it as part of the culture. Yeah.
Wonderful, Harsha. And the example that you took of that person unintentionally kind of, like saying that I don't kind of talk about my sexuality or my gender anytime without realizing that, like you said, stepping into a particular toilet which is marked for a particular purpose or a particular set of people. I think all of those are giveaways straight away, and people do not realize it until you kind of, play a mirror back. So that was such a human and relatable kind of a story. And yes, of course, governance practices, making sure that, and we'll come back to hear more about that also. So those are things that, definitely will kind of help organizations move forward. Absolutely. Great, this thing. Yeah.
So, ma'am, I have a question. Like, for example, like Harsha discussed about corporate side of things related to
Yeah.
ERG. So, Ali sir went on to discussing policy, legislature, and went on to discuss the global at the global level what things are taking place. I would like to know more onto the non-profit side of things, since you are working with an NGO, Connecting Dreams Foundation. There are two questions like coming in my mind right now. Why should non-profit work with ERGs, and what are the mutual benefits that they achieve? Secondly, how they can work with ERGs.
Sure, sure. So I think those are all very pertinent questions. Like even Ali said, and Harsha also said that, the workplace and the personal side of things, these are just, two coins of the same personality. I mean, between a 9 to 6, you kind of live one kind of a life, and the rest of the day, you're another person. So to me, it's actually not two separate entities. It's just that, we are kind of, like, okay, an NGO is supposed to be an NGO, and a corporate is supposed to be a corporate. But eventually, we are, like part of the larger society. And civil service organizations or NGOs do have not only several benefits to offer, but also several synergies. So, the first thing is that, NGOs will often have expertise in certain specific areas related to diversity and inclusion and social issues. So, these could be, maybe certain research findings, certain best practices, certain understanding of a particular segment of a community. And we heard about, Kinnars and Hijras and Aravanis. I mean, all of these are, sub-segments of the transgender community, but still they are all very different from each other. So, tapping into these local grassroots level findings, understanding best practices, these are certain things that, a corporate can anytime leverage, because eventually at the end of the day, we are a part of the larger society. Similarly, when we kind of, talk about the corporates are kind of, working, and they are definitely, you've heard Harsha, Sonal, and Ali talk extensively about, the work that they're doing within the corporates to make people comfortable, to make them belonged, to make them, really a part of the workforce. But the community outreach, and that is where I think CSOs can offer ERGs with a lot of opportunities to connect with the broader community and participate in not only outreach programs but also contribute to social impact initiatives. So Ali mentioned the HIV program with the what he's trying to do and how he's kind of looking at health initiatives. He also talked about a policy dialogue that he's having. That is not possible only within the lens or the realm or the small area of a corporate. Also, if we are looking at amplifying impact, I think again there are a lot of areas where we can kind of work together and make a larger significant contribution to social causes. Sonal mentioned that, and she is kind of supporting a program with Connecting Dreams Foundation on education of transgenders, and also doing it through skill development, vocational programs, as well as scholarships. So, in a way, I think what she's also contributing to is nurturing the community to enable them to enter the employment workforce. One of the biggest problems that we have today is that even if, more than 68%, as per one of the surveys, more than 68% of the corporate sector does have some policy or the other in place for diversity hiring, which is inclusive of LGBTQ. But when it comes to the preparedness of the LGBTQ community to enter the workforce, the gap is actually still the same as it was earlier, because education, access to good reliable education, certifications, whether it is vocational or otherwise, is a big problem, because at the grassroots level, most of the people who identify themselves as non-binary would either walk away from home or enter into badhai toli or sex trade or something of that kind, which really kind of puts them away from education. So to mainstream them, the first step has to be towards education. The rest of the other there are other strategies also. So I think together we can amplify the impact by kind of working together. And of course, yes, when it comes to policy influence, there is a lot that NGOs can offer. And we do kind of may come with a diverse perspective. And I do remember that during the G20, I'd gone to Srinagar to to participate in something which was talking about gender, and there was a G20 working group that was formed. And there I think I realized that the diverse perspectives that we have in each and every state with regards to not only the trans persons but also the wider LGBTQ, that's something that has never been tabled at a forum such as that. So suddenly I was a hero over there, where people were kind of reaching out to say that okay, in the policy pack we need you to not only just kind of, talk about India, but also how India can offer certain best practices to others, which is through the cultural route, where we often seek, like blessings, and we do not discriminate. We have so many positive role models and even gods that actually kind of, relate to that LGBTQ community. We are not a binary, culture. If we go back to, thousands and thousands of years of our culture, we are not a binary community at all. And then kind of, comparison with policies and what we could kind of, do to that. So those were things that I was asked to do, which was like totally unexpected. But it was like really a pleasure to kind of, work with. And building alliances, networking, I think those are just, like small things that we can kind of, do together. So overall, I would say that, creating a powerful synergy starts with aligning the corporate world with the CSOs, so that, social responsibility and fostering a positive kind of a change in both the workplace and the broader community becomes something which is reachable, which is doable, and is actionable. Did I make some sense, Anuradha?
Absolutely, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Having kind of, said that, I think the next question that I have for Ali is that, collaborating, I think we discussed this, that, like at an APAC level, he's kind of, doing a lot of work. But Ali, I just wanted to also understand that, ERGs must have a voice within the organization and participation from all levels, including the leadership. So you did kind of, touch upon some of the things about, like having a governance structure. And I wanted to know that what does governance structure in ZS Associates looks like, specifically when we are kind of, talking about ERG groups, not just LGBTQ, but just the, larger, wider.
Okay, so in the last couple of years, we've evolved quite a lot in terms of our governance structure, and we keep, trying to get better by the day. So in ZS Associates, we do have something called as a DEI Council, which is an executive body that has been appointed by our board. So each of the members out there are board appointed members for a fixed, kind of tenure. I happen to be one of those members as well. And the participation in this is kept, bases a lot of parameters, not just because you are a leader or, of a sizable domain. That's the reason. Again, you've consistently worked in that space. You've made a significant impact on the community either within the organization or outside, and you would need to undergo a rigorous evaluation before the board would appoint you for that. The chairperson of this DEI council happens to be our COO, who's also a woman leader. So we try to, bring in that kind of a diversity. Again, there is a gender diversity, there's an orientation-based diversity into the council members, and we also have a couple of external members. So for example, some of our organization consultants, partners, auditors that we work with are kept as permanent members, so that it does not become, a my way or highway kind of a piece. There's a collaborative thought process coming in. Now, apart from this council, we've got a dedicated team within our HR from a global standpoint called as a DEI COE. The DI Center of Excellence, their job, again, with leadership positions out there as well, is to steer and help across the council, enable their vision across the firm, monitor, measure, manage those things on behalf of the council. Now, apart from it, then the ERGs have their own structure. The ERGs would always have a sponsor who is a partner level of person within ZS, followed by a global lead, and then you've got the regional setup, the way they may want to, structure that across. But some of the best practices that we always share across is, you need to have somebody who's looking at alliances, you need to have somebody who's looking at, office level point of contacts or leads. So, Pune should have a person within your group, Delhi should have another person, so that there is more local, regional, global, all infusing in together. Apart from it, I think HR, legal do become the support system. So it's not just HR, you also need legal, because there would be certain requirements of the policies that need to encompass from a legal standpoint as well. So we try to bring in a broader perspective. And then again, when you look at things even around, things with privacy and so coming in today, that's another angle towards DNI, right? Because many a times, it's observed that people, while they are afraid to show up as allies, and they come up with these questions, why should I want to focus onto one group, as Harsha said, right? But they don't refrain from cracking jokes across somebody's orientation, gender identity, how they would decide to clothe themselves, how they want to put their appearances out. So when you do not discriminate while joking, how can you want to bring that hypocritic view when you're talking about somebody's identity? So here is where even the legal system starts protecting, because now even in India, you've got the DPDP Act that's come across for privacy. So orientation is a protected identity. It's somebody's own choice when they want to come out, how they want to come out, and so on. So that brings in the entire ecosystem of corporate governance.
Absolutely, Ali. I think a lot of wisdom over there, and really happy to see such a robust structure. I've experienced similar stuff while working with Harsha when we were kind of, like doing a program together. But Harsha, I never got a glimpse of the full structure. Would you like to also add on to what Ali just said and see if the two organizations work similarly, or is it, some things that you're doing differently?
Uh, Sorry about that. I think it is very similar, like how we have the distributed charter setup, or how we are keeping the onus on people. Coming to the on the CSR part, I think that was the question you asked, right? Like the work we did with connecting teams.
Correct, correct. So I saw some of the group members, and I could, vaguely make out that there was a governance structure in place. But I just wanted to understand that, like anything different that you're doing, that was my question. Ali talked about a very strong structure.
Yeah, so I think first thing we are, I mean, same as Ali, having a structure in place makes it more organized, makes the cause more real, and also gives you the scalability of it. It's not a one of the year you're doing something for the community and you're off it. We have a very strong structure that way. We also have a very strong push for people staying in that position. Like we expect people to move out every 2 years from the core team or the ERG core team. And that's because we want to build more and more leaders, more and more capabilities in more employees of the company, and not get it condensed into one of the few members in the company. So that's a very fantastic rule. I think DNI at Microsoft thought that, hey, let's not condense it to few people. Let's just make it as a part of process that you cannot stay in that same position for more than 2 years, and you can reapply after a cooling period of 2 more years or something like that. That helps us, bring in fresh perspectives, fresh energy to the team, because it does take a stagnancy after a point. It does take some kind of backseat where people have other stuff to deal with in a company, in their work they do every day, right? So yeah, that was another interesting structure we got into our ERG space. And lastly, we hold people accountable for the cost. Like I said, everybody who's in the core team has a very direct line item in their shared core priority, which they have to contribute, and the managers are held accountable for driving that conversation with those employees and asking them, hey, we see that there is this shared core priority. Help me understand what is your work to build impact. So we make it as important as any other plan of record for yourself in the workplace. We also have very strong bias of not having HRs in the core team, and I say this with extreme humility to that function of the company. It's super critical, but we also want to drive that message that DNI is not HR's job. Gleam or LGBTQI plus inclusion is not HR's job. It is everybody's responsibility. So we do have executive sponsors from the HR world. We do have HR champion or a support function for the ERG to survive. But we make sure that the core team is as as simple as non-HRs to begin with, and that helps you build that image of DNI being everybody's job, and makes it more real. And funds, the last one which I wanted to really call out, as these initiatives, these things need funds, and it's the onus on business to use it, diligently and fund these initiatives. So DNI in Microsoft, especially ERGs, I don't want to talk about DNI in specific. We do have chief DNI officer. We have the office of DNI, which comes under the HR world. But ERGs are funded by businesses, and that's the very critical aspect of how ERGs run in our company. It has to be funded by a business. Every business, based on the headcount they have, has to carve out funds from their business operations, and it doesn't come from training or morale or some other corner case scenarios. It comes from core business operations funds, and it has to come from there. The business then feels more obligated that, hey, they are funding this initiative, they better do a right job of getting it to the right place. So ERGs have that very strong funding criteria, and ERGs need to submit proposals like how you submit for any other business case, where every year there's a planning meeting. You submit a proposal saying, hey, I need X lakhs of Indian rupees for us to run this initiatives in this ERG. There will be scrutiny, there will be milestone, there will be tracking. Like it's as same as running a full-fledged product team in Microsoft, where everybody is held accountable. Everybody is held up accountable for the money you're spending. Everybody, like, we have something called as OKRs in the product development, where you say objective, key responsibilities, key results, and everybody in ERGs need to write their OKRs. You're tracked based on that OKR. So it's so beautiful to see that we turned it into a product. We turned it into measurable initiative, and that just makes it more easy for people to drive passion and do the right thing. Yeah. So that's some bits on how we operate as an ERG structure.
Thanks, Harsha. Because my next question actually was about, how do you embed the initiatives? And I think you kind of did that in the last part of your question, talking about how every person's OKRs do have a component of contributing to an ERG, and how IBUs, whether they are small or big, do have, like a stake that they put in towards the ERG. So that is so beautifully done. Ali, would you also want to kind of, add on to the last part of the question that, what are some of the, so we talk about, OKR. So like Harsha mentioned that, some of the key results are something that you are kind of, focused on, and that could kind of, keep changing year by year, location by location. But what are the larger KPIs that you kind of, look into? Is it participation rate? Is it the number of hours? How do you kind of measure that out?
So there are multiple things that we look in terms of, our entire when we talk about DNI, right? So one being that at a firm level, from a DNI perspective, we would, we stress a lot on the belonging journey. So right from pre-onboarding, the early 0 to 100 days, then the continuous sustained career path of the person, and then even a time of offboarding. And we've planned across the set of DNI key metrics that would talk not just on the demographics about their people, but also on their experience. And then to support it, we do a lot of privileged assessments and audits as well from time to time, so that we try and we see that bias mitigation is happening. For example, performance management, you won't see a very direct correlation because it's going to look as discriminatory, but then you may want to target somebody depending on their gender and other demographic elements, and we try to review these. So we've got this set of large scale of KPIs that we manage across, but apart from that, from an ERG to ERG perspective as well, there are metrics that we try and focus on each year's target. Now for Pride at a global level for LGBTQ, this year's, just giving you an example, our metrics are retention, recruitment, and representation. So we've earmarked a percent. So our goal would sound like this: maintain firms X% LGBTQI individuals, retain the talent across departments, developing initiatives to create a supportive and safe environment throughout their employee journey. The other one would be recruitment, achieve recruitment parity with other diversity groups for representing levels that reflect the US market. And then we would call about, in terms of representation, establish a goal for focus hiring and retention on transgender visibility through our various programs, and ensure that you have the right sponsorships created. So now this is my target for this year, because here are a few target areas we really want to focus on. Now, I know our numbers are good, but again, as Harsha says, numbers aren't everything, right? It's the experience that matters. And how do you try and boost that through the year? Now again, depending on what the nuances would be, things would change. Every year, what we also do, Semi, is, at a global level, there's something called as a health check that we run, which is a kind of a survey of sorts that would focus on people's belonging experience as well within the organization. How are their managers treating them? What do they think about the firm? Is the leadership transparent about insights? Are they liking the culture around? Are they liking the D&I work that's happening? And we try and absorb a lot of this feedback so that we can curate each of those year's goals, and automatically it becomes a part of our MBOs and plans that are measured, and you can't escape them, right? So you got to do it.
So thanks Ali for bringing that to the table and reflecting upon it. Also, I think it's very robust. Anuradha just kind of pinged me in person to say that, hey, we are running out of time. I think the conversations have been so interesting, and I simply lost track of time. So Anuradha, over to you to kind of bring this session to a closure. And thank you so much, Harsha, Ali, and Sonal, for being here.
So thank you, everyone. So it was nice discussing a very sensitive topic with so much of grace, starting with discussing Harsha's story of self-acceptance and a quest to know oneself, and facing challenges due to the stigma and the taboos attached with the gender identity of homosexuality. And a transition from engineer to a DEI professional was very interesting, and that gave Harsha the leadership position through which he could exercise the workplace advocacy. So in this discussion, we deliberate on corporates, government policy measures, and NGO stance with respect to the LGBT community, and how ERG turned into a measurable product initiative was something which was very interesting. As Sonal discussed, that offering a gender neutral offer letter, it is a welcoming step also. And Ali sir discussed about focused hierarchy and retention is something which is going to be planned. So at the end, I would like to mention that respecting, accepting, and being sensitive to, every identity, be it gender, caste, religious, sexual orientation, is the need of the hour. But yet there is a dire need of breaking those chain of all these identities that is wrapping us around, and forging towards the inclusiveness, which is, I believe, is the real inclusiveness. Yeah.
Thank you, Anuradha, for summarizing it, and thank you everybody on the panel for being here with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simi. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.